The ocean hides many secrets, and some are darker than we can imagine. Trainers and orcas perform stunning shows that amaze crowds. But there is a dangerous truth beneath the surface. No matter how well they are trained, orcas are wild predators with instincts that cannot be controlled. This story follows trainers Sam Collins and Jake Donovan as they confront the unpredictable nature of these apex creatures, whose raw power can surface at any moment. After years and years of training, which typically involves orca trainers investing years building relationships with these intelligent and powerful animals, the results can be catastrophic when things go wrong. The tragic events that unfold reveal the inherent danger in working so closely with creatures that, despite being trained, are still governed by primal instincts. In these moments, we are reminded that the ocean's predators can never be fully tamed. No matter how deep the bond between the trainer and the animal, nature's grip on these animals is 10 times stronger than any bond they can form with man. The day at the marine park started like any other, with the sun reflecting off the clear waters of the orca tank and an eager audience filling the stands. Families brought their children to witness the spectacle of orcas performing in harmony with their trainers, marveling at the seamless interaction between humans and these magnificent creatures. Sam Collins, the park's most experienced trainer, had been working with orcas for over a decade. For him, this show was just another routine, and his bond with Luna, the park's star orca, was the cornerstone of his confidence. Sam and Luna had spent years developing trust and understanding, creating a flawless partnership that never failed to impress the crowd. Every leap, every splash, and every interaction had been rehearsed and performed hundreds of times before. The connection between them seemed unbreakable, a relationship built on mutual respect. But as Sam stood beside the tank, watching Luna glide effortlessly through the water, something felt off. Luna had been restless lately, showing subtle signs of unease, but Sam hadn't thought too much of it. Orcas, like humans, go through phases. Sometimes they're moody, sometimes they're playful. Sam had seen it all. But still, Luna's recent behavior was unlike her usual calm and controlled self. Sam had always known her to be reliable, responding to his commands with precision. Today, though, that sense of unease gnawed at him. He couldn't pinpoint why, but he had a feeling deep down that something wasn't quite right. Shaking off the creeping doubt, Sam plastered on a smile for the crowd, their cheers washing over him as the show began. The music blared through the speakers, and on cue, Luna launched herself out of the water, performing a breathtaking leap that sent the audience into a frenzy. Sam relaxed slightly, reassured by the familiar sight of Luna's graceful movements. Maybe he'd been overthinking it. The tension he'd felt earlier seemed like a false alarm as the show moved along without a hitch. Children squealed with delight as Luna sprayed water onto the front rows, and Sam smiled, proud of the connection he and Luna shared. This was why he did the job, to give people unforgettable experiences and to foster an appreciation for these majestic creatures. However, as the performance progressed, that nagging feeling returned. Luna, while still impressive to the audience, was not quite herself. Her movements were slightly off, not enough for the crowd to notice, but Sam could tell she was straying from the practiced routine, swimming in odd patterns, and her responses to Sam's signals were delayed, sometimes off mark altogether. To the untrained eye, it might have looked like improvisation, but Sam knew their routine inside and out. Luna wasn't following his cues as precisely as she always had. The cheers from the crowd grew louder, the laughter of the children echoing around the stadium, but Sam was growing more concerned with each passing second. He subtly adjusted his signals, trying to guide Luna back into the flow of the performance, but it was clear she wasn't responding the way she should. When it came time for the finale, Sam hesitated. This was the moment everyone waited for, the synchronized swim with Luna. A breathtaking act that closed the show in perfect harmony. Sam and Luna, gliding through the water as one had become the park's signature moment, a testament to their years of trust. But tonight, something felt off. Luna had been restless, her energy unpredictable, and Sam couldn't shake the gnawing dread that had settled in his gut. As he stood on the edge of the tank, preparing to dive, he couldn't help but wonder what Luna might do next. Every fiber of his being screamed at him to stop, but he pushed it aside, trusting in the routine. Taking a deep breath, he dove into the cool water, hoping the familiar rhythm of the act would settle her. For a moment, everything seemed normal. The music played, the crowd roared, eagerly anticipating the breathtaking finale they had come to love. Luna swam beside him, her sleek body cutting through the water with ease. But then, something shifted. Her movements, once smooth and graceful, became sharp and unpredictable. She circled too close, brushing against Sam with a force that was far too aggressive, her massive body almost pushing him aside. Sam's heart pounded in his chest. He reached out, signaling her to back off, trying to regain control. But instead of responding, Luna did the unthinkable. She swam away, ignoring him entirely. The crowd, unaware of the danger, continued to cheer, thinking this was part of the show, a dramatic twist meant to thrill. But Sam knew better. He knew the danger was real. His instincts screamed at him, telling him he was in trouble. Suddenly, Luna turned back, her powerful body moving with a speed and precision that terrified him. Before he could react, she clamped down on his leg, her jaws closing with a force so intense it felt like his bones would shatter. The pain was immediate, searing through him like fire. He wanted to scream, to cry out for help, but the cold water swallowed his voice. Above, the audience remained blissfully unaware, still captivated by the spectacle unfolding before their eyes. Under the surface, Sam was no longer a trainer. He was prey, and the creature he had trusted for years had become his predator. Luna wasn't following the routine anymore. Sam's signals, once all it took to guide her through a flawless performance, were now meaningless. She was no longer the graceful, responsive creature the audience had come to admire. In an instant, she had become a force of nature, untamable and dangerous. Sam, despite his years of experience, realized he was no longer in control. Luna had turned into something more terrifying than he had ever imagined. Before he could react, she grabbed him in her jaws and pulled him into the depths of the tank. Panic surged through Sam as the icy water surrounded him. Luna dragged him deeper, her powerful body thrashing violently. He tried to regain his bearings, but every second, the orca pulled him further. The water around them turned a darker shade of red. The blood, his blood, spread through the tank, a silent signal that something had gone terribly wrong. It took a few moments for the crowd to notice, the cheers slowly giving way to gasps of horror. A murmur spread across the audience, and the realization hit like a wave. This wasn't part of the show. Something was terribly wrong. The stadium, which had moments ago been filled with the laughter of children and the applause of delighted spectators, now fell silent. Parents shielded their children's eyes as the trainers on the platform erupted into action. Commands were shouted, ropes were thrown into the water, but it was all too late. Luna was in a frenzy, whipping Sam around like he weighed nothing. The water, once warm and inviting, now felt cold and menacing. Sam's chest tightened as he struggled to breathe. His lungs burned, and the crushing force of Luna's grip only made it harder for him to fight back. Sam tried to think clearly, to remember the drills they had practiced for emergencies like this. But none of those exercises had prepared him for the reality of being caught in the jaws of an orca he had trusted for years. This was beyond anything he had ever imagined. Luna, the gentle creature he had bonded with, was now a predator, and Sam was her prey. The cold water pressed in from all sides, and with every second, his strength slipped away. He kicked, he fought. But Luna's grip was too strong, too unrelenting. Above the surface, the audience could only watch in helpless horror. The trainers, desperate to save Sam, frantically tried everything they could, but nothing worked. Luna's massive body thrashed through the tank with terrifying force, creating waves that churned the water into a violent storm. Children screamed, parents whispered frantically, but no one could look away. The man who had once commanded the stage with grace and confidence was now at the mercy of the creature he had dedicated his life to, the creature he had loved. Minutes felt like hours. Sam's vision blurred, the water growing darker as his consciousness began to fade. He knew his time was running out. His movements slowed, his body growing heavier with every moment. The cold seeped into his bones, and he could no longer fight. Suddenly, just as it seemed the end had come, Luna released him. Sam's limp body floated toward the surface, carried by the currents in the tank. The rescue divers plunged into the water, reaching for him, but they were too late. By the time they pulled him to safety, the damage was done. Sam was gone. The man who had once been the heart of the show, beloved by audiences and respected by his peers, had been claimed by the very animal he had trusted above all others. The stadium remained eerily silent. No one could believe what they had just witnessed. Sam Collins, the park's most skilled trainer, had been taken by Luna, the star orca, now a killer in the eyes of everyone who had seen the gruesome scene. The water, once a symbol of joy and awe, had become the place of Sam's demise. As the news spread, shockwaves rippled through the world. Luna, once the centerpiece of the park shows, was no longer seen as a majestic performer, but as a dangerous predator capable of turning on even those who cared for her most. Jake Donovan, fresh out of training, was excited to start his new job at Ocean View Cove. It was his first day working with Echo, the park's most famous orca. Jake had spent months studying orca behavior, preparing for this moment. He had read everything about their complex moods and unpredictable nature. He knew the risks involved but believed in the strong bond that could be formed between trainers and these magnificent animals. The day began smoothly. Jake entered the tank, and Echo responded to his commands with perfect precision. Each movement was flawless, and Jake felt an overwhelming sense of pride. His training had paid off, and from the platform, the senior trainer watched, clearly impressed. Everything was going according to plan, and Jake couldn't have been more confident. However, as the session continued, Jake noticed something had shifted in Echo's behavior. She began to stray from her usual routine, her movements slightly off. It was subtle, but there was a tension in the air that Jake, being new, didn't fully grasp. Naive to the sudden change, he continued as if everything was fine. But just like in other cases he'd studied, where orcas had turned on their trainers without warning, Echo suddenly launched herself at him. Before Jake could react, Echo grabbed his leg with her powerful cone-shaped teeth and pulled him under the water with a force he hadn't anticipated. Panic flooded through Jake as he felt the breath leave his lungs. The water, once calm and clear, was now churning with his blood. Everything he had trained for, every safety drill he had run, paled in comparison to the sheer terror of this moment. He fought against Echo's grip, but she was far too strong. The orca was in control now, and Jake's body was at the mercy of her incredible power. The pain was intense, shooting through his leg as Echo's teeth dug in deeper. Jake's mind raced, trying to stay focused, but his thoughts were clouded by fear and the realization that he might not survive this. His lungs burned as he struggled to get to the surface to breathe, but Echo kept pulling him deeper, the water growing darker and colder. Just when Jake thought it was over, Echo suddenly released him. The orca swam away as if nothing had happened, leaving Jake floating in the tank, gasping for air. His vision blurred, but he could see the senior trainer diving in to pull him to safety. The trainers on the platform had sprung into action the moment they saw the attack, but it all felt like a blur to Jake. All he could focus on was the excruciating pain in his leg and the realization of how close he had come to death. Paramedics arrived quickly, and Jake was rushed to the hospital for emergency surgery. His leg had been badly injured, and the road to recovery would be long and painful. While he had survived, the experience had shaken him to his core. He had known the risks, but nothing could have prepared him for facing the raw, untamed power of an orca firsthand. News of Jake's attack spread quickly, making headlines much like the infamous incident with Sam Collins years earlier. Questions about the safety of orca performances resurfaced, and many debated whether such shows should even continue. For Jake, the experience was more than just a news story. It was a personal turning point. He had come face to face with the harsh reality of working with these animals. Beautiful, intelligent, yet unpredictable and dangerous. In time, Jake returned to work at Ocean View Cove, but he did so with a new perspective. He had a deepened respect for the orcas and understood the fragile bond between trainer and animal. Trust could be built, but it was never absolute. That day had taught him a valuable lesson. No matter how much experience or training a person had, these powerful creatures were forces of nature, and the wild within them could never truly be tamed. If you enjoyed this video, then make sure to check our next one shown on screen.